As we go to air, leaders of the 57-nation Organization of Islamic Cooperation are meeting in Saudi Arabia to discuss the ongoing civil war in Syria. The meeting has brought together key regional players who are directly involved in the Syrian conflict on both sides. Foreign ministers of the OIC have already agreed to suspend Syria from the group. Well, for more on the significance of this meeting in Saudi Arabia, I'm joined now by Arash Aramesh. He's an analyst of Middle East politics. Good to have you with us on the programme. And the first thing to say, seeing those pictures coming out of Saudi Arabia, is the rather extraordinary sight of the Saudi Arabian King Abdullah sitting next to Mahmoud Ahmadinejad.
It is a quite extraordinary sight. Problem is that Mr. Ahmadinejad is not a decision maker when it comes down to Iranian foreign policy. And the key decision maker in Iran is the Supreme Leader Ayatollah Khamenei, who has lent his unquestionable and support to the government of President Assad of Syria. It is also quite disturbing to see Mr. Ahmadinejad run away from his home country a day after Iran, northwestern Iran, was devastated. The province of Azerbaijan was devastated by a deadly earthquake. So I'm not quite sure what Ahmadinejad is trying to achieve, aside from the fact that he might try to spin this to his domestic audience and claim that he has a role in the diplomatic scene.
Well, if you were being kind, you could point out that Mahmoud Ahmadinejad is an ally of Syria's President Bashar al-Assad, and he's there to defend Syria because, of course, we know that this particular meeting wants to suspend Syria from the OIC.
Undoubtedly, the Iranian government is the biggest ally of, or maybe the only ally of President Assad of Syria, at least in the region. So Ahmadinejad is there to lend the support to Mr. Assad. Iran and Algeria were the only two countries, to my knowledge, that voted against the suspension of Syria from the cooperation of the Islamic countries. It's unclear, again, what Mr. Ahmadinejad is there to achieve exactly, aside from having a podium to yet again have his support for the government of President Assad be heard, and also to come back to Iran and spin this as yet another diplomatic victory that he sat next to King Abdullah, which is Iran's main rival. As you know, Iran and Saudi Arabia have had a few very tense months in the past 2 years since the Arab Spring began. Iran's involvement in Bahrain, and now Iran and Saudi Arabia's direct clashes in Syria have become a very sore topic in the relations of the two countries. We'll see how it works out for Ahmadinejad.
As far as Syria is concerned, the fact that it is likely to be suspended from the OIC, how significant is that, or is it basically just symbolism from the OIC?
At this point, it's just symbolic moves and symbolic gestures. The Assad government and the Ba'ath government in Syria is very much concerned with self-survival and self-sustenance. So the key question to them is to survive. At this point, Syria does not have much support or any support at all in the Arab world, with the exception of the Iraqi government of Nouri al-Maliki. In the Mideast, in the broader Mideast, they have support from Iran. So they know that the Saudis and the Qataris and the rest of the Islamic Conference is very much against what's been happening in Assad's Syria. So I don't think it's much of a concern to them, except that they're going to come out and denounce this as yet another conspiratorial move by the conservative sheikdoms of the Arab world. But the violence for the foreseeable future, unfortunately, is going to continue because there seems to be no end to it at the time being.
Arash Aramesh joining us from Washington, D.C. Appreciate your time. Thank you so much. Well, Syria's former Prime Minister has given his first public interview since fleeing to neighbouring Jordan. Riyad Hijab defected from the government of President Bashar al-Assad last week and joined the opposition. That has led the United States to lift sanctions it had imposed on him. Now Hijab is calling for other officials